One detail Blair and Jenny from Gossip Girl share in common is that they were both extremely toxic when they were serving as the queen bees of Constance. Who was actually more ruthless between Jenny and Blair, though? They both did some evil things, and occasionally they were both downright diabolical. We've got arguments on both sides for who is worse, and our definitive answer might shock you. Blair set Jenny up to get arrested. One of the shadiest things Blair did while she was queen bee was setting Jenny up to get arrested on the night of her annual sleepover. Blair invited a bunch of girls over, insisted they play a reckless game of truth or dare, and encouraged everyone to drink alcohol, even though they were all underage. At one point, she dared Jenny to break into Eleanor Waldorf's store to steal a jacket, and it was a total setup. Jenny got locked in, Blair and the other girls left without her, and cops arrived at the scene to question Jenny for theft. Fortunately, Jenny was able to think on her feet. She talked her way out of the situation by telling police officers Eleanor Waldorf was her mother. But Jenny showcased her cruelty when she bullied Eric by dumping yogurt on his head. An easy moment of cruel behavior to dissect from Jenny came when she bullied Eric and Jonathan on the Met steps. Eric showed her love and loyalty before she was crowned queen bee, and that's what made her decision to bully him so much more devastating. She didn't approve of Eric and Jonathan sitting above her on the Met steps, so she retaliated by letting her minions dump yogurt on his head. They also hit Jonathan with eggs. Jenny simply didn't care about all the love and loyalty she received from Eric prior to that point, because she was desperate to prioritize her status as queen bee. Blair proved she was pretty damn toxic when she hazed her high school teacher, Rachel Carr. While Blair was the reigning queen of Constance, she thought she could control everyone around her, including her teachers. Blair was desperate to maintain her perfect 4.0 grade point average, and she was willing to do whatever it took to make that happen. Hazing Rachel became Blair's obsession after Blair received a B grade from Rachel on a test. Blair ultimately accused Rachel of having an inappropriate student-teacher relationship with Dan Humphrey. Granted, Rachel and Dan did eventually start hooking up with each other, but Blair spread rumors about the affair before she had any of the actual facts. Talk about toxic. But is it worse that Jenny sold drugs with Damien Dalgard to buy designer purses for her minions? Jenny wholeheartedly wanted to impress her minions, and that meant she was willing to do inappropriate things to get her hands on large sums of cash. When Jenny was queen bee, she started dating drug dealer Damien, who treated her terribly the entire time they were together. What made the relationship the most toxic is that he enlisted her help in selling illegal substances to people on the Upper East Side. Jenny was quick to agree to the arrangement because she wanted her minions to remain loyal to her. When she used the money she earned from drug sales to purchase designer bags for Carmen, Jane, and Sawyer, it became abundantly obvious that Jenny was willing to break the law just to be queen. Pure toxicity. Blair was a terrible ruler when she attempted to sabotage Nellie Yuki's SAT score to block Nellie from getting into Yale. When Blair was Queen of Constance, one of the most barbaric things she did was trying to ruin Nellie's opportunity of getting into Yale. Blair was desperate to be selected for a spot at Yale herself, and she knew that the Ivy League school only accepted one female student from Constance. Before the SAT exam, Blair made sure Nellie would be super distracted by getting Nellie's ex-boyfriend involved. Ironically, Blair's evil plan didn't even pan out the way she wanted. Even though Nellie didn't get to sleep or study as much as she wanted before her SATs, she still scored better than Blair, and she still snagged the spot at Yale that Blair hysterically wanted. Jenny showcased her evil side when she confirmed the Gossip Girl blast, exposing Blair for hooking up with Nate and Chuck in the same week. Blair definitely wasn't thinking straight when she hooked up with Nate and Chuck back-to-back. She swiped her V-card with Chuck in the back of his limo, and then she slept with Nate not long after. Obviously, she didn't want Nate to know the truth, so she decided to keep it to herself. When the Gossip Girl blast went up, Nate was struggling to believe the rumor himself, until Jenny bumped into him and confirmed that it was completely true. Jenny was not crowned Queen Bee of Constance when that incident happened, but it still serves as an indication of how brutal she could be with someone else's dirty little secrets, even before she was crowned Queen Bee later on. Blair was the definition of a toxic queen when she constantly criticized Jenny, Dan, and Vanessa for living in Brooklyn. There's no denying that Blair was a tough pill to swallow whenever she opened her mouth about Brooklyn. Blair never had anything kind to say about Brooklyn because she felt like it was the slums of New York. Blair was obsessed with Manhattan because she had respect for the Upper East Side. She believed anyone who lived in Brooklyn was less valuable as a human being. Her harsh criticisms of Jenny, Dan, and Vanessa were always so aggressively mean. From Blair's perspective, wealth and social status gave a person a higher sense of importance. That toxicity was something she actively harped on while she was Queen Bee of Constance. Jenny was toxic AF when she used blackmail on Blair's minions to keep them in line. She proved she was willing to push every boundary by delving into blackmail territory when she wanted to threaten Blair's minions. Jenny's willingness to dig up the most chaotic gossip of all is why she ultimately was crowned Queen Bee by Blair and the first place. Nellie told Jenny that Penelope had been having an affair with her dad's junior partner for the past 6 months, that Hazel got drunk and hooked up with her cousin twice, and she also revealed something cringy about Isabel too, but viewers didn't get to hear what that was. Jenny's desire to dangle such dark secrets over the other girls proved her toxicity in leadership. But was Blair worse than Jenny when she exposed Jenny for stealing Hazel's mother's red dress? Blair had little to no patience for Jenny in early episodes of Gossip Girl. Far before Blair even considered Jenny as someone who could be her successor, she was always giving Jenny a hard time for every tiny thing. When Jenny tried to hide the fact that she stole Hazel's mother's red dress, Blair was quick to make sure Jenny wouldn't get away with it. Jenny ended up getting embarrassed in front of all the girls at school, and she got severely punished by her father, who lost all trust in her from that moment forward. As a reminder, that was the incident that caused Rufus to start clamping down on Jenny with a much stricter parenting style than he had before. But was Jenny worse than Blair when she conspired against Serena to steal Nate? While Jenny was Queen Bee, she prioritized the idea of having the right man on her arm. The one guy who always treated Jenny with respect was Nate Archibald. She wanted him to be her boyfriend, and she wanted him badly. Unfortunately for Jenny, Nate was head over heels in love with Serena when Jenny was the most interested in him. Jenny aggressively tried to seduce Nate from Serena by doing her best to sabotage their relationship. She thought she could somehow end up with Nate as her boyfriend after using manipulative and conniving methods. Jenny's seduction plan for Nate didn't work out in her favor, even though she was in a powerful position on the social totem pole at that time. Was Blair a more toxic Queen Bee after she tried to ice Serena out of the kiss on the lips party? Let's rewind back to season 1 of Gossip Girl for a moment. Blair was dominating as Queen Bee of Constance, and she wasn't ready to be friendly with Serena in the slightest when Serena first returned. Serena had just gotten back from boarding school, and she wanted to know details about Blair's kiss on the lips party. Blair was offended that Serena left New York City without saying goodbye, and she wasn't exactly happy about it when Serena randomly resurfaced. It took a while for Blair and Serena's friendship to warm up again after all the BS they went through. Blair's decision to ice Serena out from the party scene at that time proved how toxic and unforgiving Blair was as Queen Bee. Was Jenny more toxic as Queen Bee after hooking up with Chuck, knowing Blair was in love with him? Jenny might have been Queen Bee of Constance after receiving the crown from Blair, but that doesn't mean she was making smart decisions in her romantic life. In a moment of loneliness and depression, Jenny made the unfortunate choice to have sex with Chuck. The reason the decision was so bad is that Jenny knew Chuck and Blair had serious feelings for each other, even though their relationship was off and on. She still got in bed with Chuck, even though she knew in the back of her mind that there was a huge chance Chuck and Blair could reconcile in the future. With all of that in her awareness, she still did the most intimate thing she could possibly do with Chuck without considering the repercussions. The repercussions were so bad that Jenny got banished from Manhattan altogether by Blair. So who was worse as Queen Bee between Blair and Jenny? Jenny was exponentially worse, and here's why. Blair was a bully and a mean girl the entire time she existed on the show. Jenny, on the other hand, knew how it felt to be at the bottom of the totem pole, and she still treated other people like garbage when she rose to the top. In our opinion, it's worse when the abused becomes the abuser. Blair never presented herself as anything other than a ruthless leader who is willing to judge other people based on their wealth, fashion choices, and beyond. Jenny, on the other hand, presented herself as an innocent little flower who supposedly cared about being a good-hearted human being. Jenny pretended to care about making thoughtful and considerate decisions with other people in mind. Jenny pretended like she would take over as Queen Bee in a way that would honor justice and fairness, but instead, she took over as Queen Bee and started acting more bitchy and more problematic than Blair. When Blair was Queen Bee, the leadership role came to her easily and effortlessly. She didn't have to try very hard to captivate respect. For Jenny, she often came across like a total tryhard. She was constantly overcompensating because naturally, she felt inferior. Jenny had a chip on her shoulder walking into the Queen Bee position, and she always felt like she had to prove herself. Her attempts to prove herself resulted in her coming across as more evil and vindictive than she should have been. Do you agree that Jenny was more toxic as Queen Bee than Blair? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section.